All right, this is going to be my second video of today, and I feel like, well, as far behind as I'm getting on wrestling news stories, I feel like I ought to be doing like 1 to 2 videos a day every day for the rest of the week, if not even longer than that, because there's just seems like there's a lot of wrestling news stories that I'd like to talk about. And anyway, on this video, I want to talk about some WWE and TNA wrestlers that unfortunately got legitimately injured in their matches, and now they're currently out of action. And also want to talk about another wrestler that was legit injured at a premium live event, but fortunately he's now medically cleared to return. And also want to talk about what I got out of watching WWE Raw on Netflix on Monday, April the 20th, because here we're starting to see like a lot of people getting moved around. We're seeing people like getting moved from the NXT roster. They're getting moved to the main roster now. We're seeing they're getting moved from NXT to the Raw roster. We're seeing people from SmackDown get moved over to Raw, and people from Raw get moved over to SmackDown. And I'm really interested to see what's going to happen on this week's SmackDown roster. I wonder, like, you know, what additional NXT wrestlers we're going to see getting moved from NXT to SmackDown. So I'm really curious to see about that. So I'm enthusiastic about watching SmackDown this week. But let's start off with these this injury report here, and I want to talk about here in WWE. Now you've seen him on the show, a couple of shows. WWE's two of their weekly shows, WWE Lucha Libre AAA, as well as WWE Evolve. Jack Cartwheel, we've seen him on WWE television for a while here, and unfortunately, he during the week of WrestleMania, he's suffered an arm injury, and he up against a wrestler called Galeno Del Mal at a GCW event, and there's no word on when he'll be able to return from that. The match, unfortunately, had to be stopped, mid-match, and, so no word on when he'll be returning. But on another thing is, on TNA, we have Trey Miguel during his TNA International Championship match that he had on the recent TNA Premium Live event / pay-per-view, because that was one of their, pay-per-views there. And at TNA Rebellion on April 11th of 2026, Trey Miguel, unfortunately, TNA had reported that he had suffered they said, well, he had to get stitches on his knee. He got a severe laceration, but TNA Trey Miguel has said recently on his social media, on his X account, he's like, no, unfortunately, it's even worse than that. It's like he found out that when the doctors checked it out, that unfortunately he had injured his kneecap. He'd broken his kneecap, broken his patella, and there's no word on when he'll be able to return from that. And, and looking back at it, he was like, I was surprised I was even able to finish that match. He was in there wrestling Mustafa Ali, formerly of WWE, in that match. He's like, all things considered, I don't even know how I finished that match, So that's what's going on with Trey Miguel. So we know he's out of action. Jack Cartwheel, he's also out of action. And those are two really excellent high flyers in the industry of today. And a wrestler that was injured on a Premium Live event at the end of March, and he has now been medically cleared to compete, is Steve Maclin from TNA. And he formerly went by the name Steve Cutler in WWE when he was in WWE. You might remember Steve Cutler when he was in the faction known as what the heck was that? The Forgotten Sons. He was in there with Wesley Blake and Jax Riker. And they were doing this gimmick where they were, they were former Marines, and they were, like patriots and everything. Well, and unfortunately, if you've watched TNA Sacrifice 2026, that pay-per-view that had occurred on March 27th, 2026. He was in there. He had a TNA World Championship match against current TNA World Champion Mike Santana. And, he got injured, and it was a shame because it was only 1 minute and 52 seconds into the match when he got injured, and they had to stop the match, and they tried to salvage it and all that. They sent Eddie Edwards came out, and he was battling Mike Santana, Mike Santana was throwing him through a cafeteria table and stuff. I think he did some high flying move off the top rope or something. In that, they tried to salvage it, but that TNA Sacrifice pay-per-view, oh my God, or a premium live event, that was a rough one. I mean, I don't know if you had seen my video on that, but that was honestly, the worst premium live event that I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God. It's like, I would not recommend watching that unless you want to torture yourself, I mean, it's one of those premium live events that might make you very well say, you know what, that's it. I am done with wrestling. And maybe that's one of the things that I watched it. Maybe that's why I kind of stepped away from my YouTube channel for a little bit longer than what I would have liked, because maybe I was just getting like, oh my God, I can't take this anymore. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, and we now know Steve Macklin, formerly known as Steve Cutler, he is now medically cleared to compete. He did mention they thought maybe he got a concussion during that match, but he said no, that wasn't the case. He did not suffer concussion, so that's good. So anyway, I also wanted to, so let's talk about WWE Raw on Netflix from April 20th, 2026, and we'll talk about the people that, a lot of people are getting moved around to different rosters, especially the people from NXT, so that's interesting to see. Now, the opening segment, we did have Obafemi in that opening segment. Didn't really have much going on here. I mean, it's like, he came out. We thought maybe there was going to be the start of another feud here, but, Obafemi, he came out doing his, strut. They showed everybody in the audience doing the Obafemi strut, do the music and everything like that. But really, unfortunately, the only thing that Obafemi said was he just came out, he grabbed the microphone, and he said, it's like, the ruler has arrived. And that's all he said, and then he just went to the back. I was like, geez, that was kind of a disappointment. I was thinking they were going to start like a storyline there, against somebody confronting Obafemi and all that, and, that would start the feud, but no, that's not what happened there. All right, well, next, let's go to our first match here. We had Kairi Sane and Asuka versus Rhea Ripley, who is the new WWE Women's Champion, as she won the Women's Championship from Jade Cargill at WrestleMania 42. And we had Rhea Ripley, she was in there alongside her good friend Io Sky here. And in this match here, we had Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. They had a good, solid, decisive win when Io Sky pinned Kairi Sane after doing her finishing move, the over the moonsault. And that led to Io Sky and Rhea Ripley getting a solid, decisive win there. And up next, we have, we're seeing what's going on with some of these people get moved around to different rosters. We have Raw General Manager Adam Pearce. He's out there with Penta, the current WWE Intercontinental Champion. And Javon Evans, he's out there, and he says, he wants to challenge Penta for the Intercontinental Championship. But, okay, here's where we got now Ethan Page. He comes out, and General Manager Adam Pearce, he announces that Ethan Page has officially been moved from the NXT roster to the Raw roster. And a lot of people are probably saying, it's like Ethan Page, he's really good at what he does. He's good at, playing the role that WWE wants him to play. They're surprised that Ethan Page didn't get called to the main roster like a year ago. Because, he's really, he's good at what he does. So now we know Ethan Page, he's officially a member of the Raw roster. And anyway, Ethan Page tells Javon Evans he's also pursuing the Intercontinental Championship held by Penta. And so and general manager Adam Pearce, he sets up a match between Ethan Page and Javon Evans for tonight. All right. Up next, now we just have they're just showing Royce Keys on screen. They're just, they're trying to put Royce Keys over. They show him in the front row. They're talking about how he just won the annual Andre the Giant Battle Royal last Friday on SmackDown. So, if you want to see more of Royce Keys, formerly known as Powerhouse Hobbs in AEW, tune in every week to SmackDown, because now Royce Keys is now on SmackDown on a weekly basis. So that's good to hear, because, they had him on the Royal Rumble, but then they didn't have him on WWE television until, just the last couple weeks. So up next, we find out what CM Punk is up to. We have CM Punk. He comes out, cuts a promo saying he was disappointed how he lost his WWE World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns at the WrestleMania 42 Premium Live event. And now we have, out of nowhere, we got Cody Rhodes, the undisputed WWE champion from SmackDown. He comes out, and CM Punk, he's like, well, he doesn't know what he's really going to be. No, he's like, he's keeping his eye out because he never knows when his next opportunity is going to come along for him to, to tackle maybe another championship. So Cody Rhodes, he's open to that. He's like, his response is like, well, CM Punk, just say when, because I'm willing to go up against you for, to defend my undisputed WWE championship. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that's one of the matches that we'll see. It's like maybe at SummerSlam. We'll probably end up seeing CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE championship. Up next, we have a segment where Finn Balor, he's talking about how he's talking about his win over Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania 42. And, he says he wants to go after J.D. McDonough next because he can't believe J.D. McDonough betrayed him. He's like, well, yeah, I could, he expected something like that would come out of somebody as lame as, dirtbag Dominic Mysterio, but he didn't think J.D. McDonough, of all people, would betray him, because it's like, J.D. McDonough was one of his best friends. And Finn Balor was talking about how he brought J.D. McDonough into the wrestling business. He's like, well, you know what? I brought J.D. McDonough into the wrestling business, and I'm going to freaking take him out of the wrestling business. So those two, they have a match for later on in this episode of WWE Raw. So next we have our match we have Ethan Page doing his very first match on WWE Raw as an official member of the Raw roster. And he's going up against Javon Evans. But unfortunately, this thing gets derailed because it gets messed up, because now we got Rusev out there being a big pain in the freaking ass, because he's out there and he's trying to interfere against Javon Evans. So now Javon Evans, he's fighting off Rusev and all that. And now Ethan Page, he gets the upper hand on Javon Evans because Javon Evans is distracted with trying to fight off Rusev. Ethan Page gets his finishing move in, known as the Twisted Grin, and Ethan Page gets the win due to Rusev interfering in the match. And up next, we have a promo for a 4-part documentary about Hulk Hogan. It's called Hulk Hogan Real American on Netflix, and that starts Wednesday, April 22nd of 2026. And this sounds actually pretty interesting. It's there's been some serious dirt coming out on Hulk Hogan about what seriously bad shape that he was in. Oh my God. Ever since ever since the Hulk Hogan went into TNA wrestling. Remember back in January, I think it was January of 2011, when Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, they went into TNA wrestling, and they were trying to do the Monday, they were trying to reinvent the Monday Night Wars with TNA wrestling. up against the WWE Raw on Monday, and it failed miserably and everything. And they talk about what, bad shape the Hulk Hogan was in, and the bad things he was doing to his body that I don't think I should really describe on this YouTube video, because it could cause YouTube to shadow ban this video, and I don't need YouTube shadow banning my videos anymore so than it already does. I already feel like I'm getting shadow banned enough as it is, so I don't want to say anything. But anyway, I thought it would be really interesting maybe looking at this new 4-part documentary about Hulk Hogan, talking about what kind of really terrible shape he honestly was in his life, far worse than people suspected. And that 4-part documentary is once again starting on Wednesday, April 22nd. So there you go. And let's see. Up next we have now we have like the Judgment Days coming out. We got like Liv Morgan. She's the new WWE Women's World Champion. She won that from Stephanie Vicaire at WrestleMania 42. She's coming out with her cohorts, Dominic Mysterio, the AAA Mega Champ, along with JD McDonough, Roxanne Perez, and Raquel Rodriguez, and they're celebrating Liv Morgan's championship win. And Sol Ruca comes out from NXT, and Liv Morgan's giving her a big bunch of freaking attitude. And, well, then we have General Manager Adam Pearce. He sets up a match between Sol Ruca from NXT and Liv Morgan, the current WWE Women's World Champion. Now, during this match, basically Michael Cole said, and he said it 2 separate times in the match, so he really made it sound like Sol Ruca is officially been moved. I don't think he made it sound like he did basically say that Sol Ruca has been moved from the NXT roster to the Raw roster. So here we are. We're seeing Sol Ruca from NXT. She now her first official match as a member of the NXT roster here, and she's going up against Liv Morgan, the WWE Women's World Champion. And here, Liv Morgan, she's out there with Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough. They went to the back to prepare for JD McDonough's match later on in the show. So at least now it's okay. Well, Sol Ruca, she's got to deal with a 3-on-1 situation instead of a 5-on-1 situation. So anyway, so you have Sol Ruca, she did her finishing move on Liv Morgan, but Liv Morgan then rolled out of the ring, and Sol Ruca then she did a move off the top rope onto the floor. She did the move on to Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez, but then Zarya from NXT, Sol Ruca has a match against Zarya tomorrow on NXT on that episode. Zarya came out now, she attacked Sol Ruca. So now, after the attack from Zarya, when Sol Ruca got back in the ring, Liv Morgan, she did her finishing move on Sol Ruca, the Oblivion, and then pinned Sol Ruca and won the match due to Zarya's interference. So, and then after the match, we had Stephanie Vicaire. She came out and threatened Liv Morgan, saying that she'll be coming back for the title that she lost at WrestleMania 42. So there you have it. So that's what happened with that. And up next, we had a tribute package to Brock Lesnar, who supposedly retired after his WrestleMania 42 match. But we're wondering if it's really true what wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer has been talking about, like how he's been hearing from people in WWE that, well, I mean, Brock Lesnar, he's retiring this year, but he's not retired just yet because they want to bring him out for one more match. They want to bring, according to what Dave Meltzer's hearing, it's like he's saying like he's hearing that they want to bring him out for a match at SummerSlam against Gunther, and then that's going to be it. That's going to be Lesnar's official retirement match. But anyway, I mean, so who knows if that's going to happen or not. But anyway, in this segment, this is a tribute segment to Brock Lesnar. We have tributes to Brock Lesnar from, a wide variety of wrestlers from the past, like Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, and current wrestlers too, like, Becky Lynch, Mike the Miz Mizanin, and past legends like Stone Cold Steve Austin and John Bradshaw Layfield and others like, Paul Heyman, and there's probably some others there that I forgot about. But anyway, there was that tribute to Brock Lesnar. And up next, we have, Austin Theory and Logan Paul, the current WWE World Tag Team Champions, along with Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman talks about how he owes Gunther a big favor for Gunther's attacking Seth Rollins. So Paul Heyman says that whenever Gunther's ready, Paul Heyman says he's willing to repay Gunther. And so this makes everybody wonder. So, okay, is what Paul Heyman's talking about is maybe like Gunther's going to ask about Gunther's going to ask for a SummerSlam match against Brock Lesnar, who's retired. Maybe he's going to ask Brock Lesnar to come out of retirement for that one last match. So we'll see what happens there. And then at this point, Paul Heyman, he brings out Braun Breaker, who's now officially back in action as of Saturday, April 18th, in WrestleMania 42 night 1 of 2. And Seth Rollins then came out with the steel chair to attack these guys, but they all ended up beating down Seth Rollins pretty quickly. But then here's where we see people get moved around from one roster to the next. Now, here's where we see the Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, who haven't been on WWE television in months. Now we find out the Street Profits have been moved from the SmackDown roster to the Raw roster. Okay? So now they're out there helping Seth Rollins, and they're helping fight off Logan Paul and Austin Theory. So I'm imagining the Street Profits are going to try to go after the WWE World Tag Team Championships held by those two guys. And the Street Profits, they're fighting off Logan Paul and Austin Theory to the back, while Seth Rollins is trying to fight off Braun Breaker. But Braun Breaker ended up destroying Seth Rollins. So now, at least we know the Street Profits, they've been moved to from the SmackDown roster to the Raw roster, apparently. All right, up next, we have just a couple segments. We have JD McDonough talking about how Finn Balor, he's looking forward to an opportunity to beat on Finn Balor later on the show in their match. And he says, well, if I had the chance to betray Finn Balor all over again, I would take it. Well, gee, some freaking friend JD McDonough is, for heaven's sake. And then, okay, also we have, they just show Trick Williams, the new United States champion, in the front aisle of the crowd, but they don't really put him in a storyline or anything on Raw. And now we have the next match. We have JD McDonough versus Finn Balor. Now, in this match, Finn Balor had a solid, decisive win here. And after the match, Dominic Mysterio, he comes out to attack Finn Balor after the match. But JD McDonough pulls Dominic Mysterio out of the way as Finn Balor was about to do his finishing move on Dominic Mysterio there. So there we go. We have Finn Balor getting a solid, decisive win against JD McDonough. Up next, we have Jackie Redmond, the interviewer. She's interviewing Gunther, and she's asking also, she's asking about, okay, Paul Heyman saying he has a very big favor to grant Gunther. So people are wondering, is he talking about, okay, granting, helping Gunther get that match against Brock Lesnar? And basically at this time we have LA Knight coming out, and Gunther says he's looking to come after the WWE World Title next. It's currently held by Roman Reigns. Well, LA Knight tells him, well, he's doing the same thing. Anyway, next they talk about next week. Now here's where we find out some more people that are getting moved to another roster here. They're talking about for next week's show, we're going to see the Intercontinental Champion Becky Lynch. She'll be on the show, but here's where we find out somebody getting moved around. Now, they talk about Joe Hendry. And he's officially been moved from the NXT roster. Now he's officially on the Raw roster. Now, it seemed like, last I read, when they very first officially signed Joe Hendry back in like, was it like November the 12th of 2025, they were signing Joe Hendry to the SmackDown roster, but they only really kept him there for like maybe like 2 weeks or so. Then they moved him to NXT. Well, now Joe Hendry's been moved from NXT to the Raw roster officially. So they said Joe Hendry will be doing performance of music next week. And up next we have we see another wrestler that's going to get moved. We have WWE Women's Champion Rhea Ripley, and she's saying her goodbye to Io Sky. She said, well, now that she's the women's WWE Women's Champion, she's going to be moving from the Raw brand to the SmackDown brand. So, but they kind of almost set up another match here in the process. They kind of teased a match like they had as Rhea Ripley walked out the door. Liv Morgan said something to her like, well, see you around. And Rhea Ripley's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So maybe that could be another match they're teasing for the future. But anyway, up next, now here this kind of came off as interesting to me. We had WWE World Heavyweight Champion Roman Reigns came out to address the crowd, and he invited Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso to come out with him, and tells both of them that he wants to get the bloodline back together. He's like, I don't like this with us all being separate. I think with us all being together, it's going to be so much better for all of us, And Jimmy Uso agrees, and he says that, well, Jimmy Uso says, well, he speaks for both of them when he says that him and Jey Uso, they are fine with that, with getting the bloodline back together. So there you have it there. However, up next we have Jacob Fatu, who is relatives with, the Usos and Roman Reigns. And Jacob Fatu, he's from SmackDown. He comes out, and nobody from the bloodline, nobody, the Usos, Roman Reigns, none of them look the least bit enthusiastic to see Jacob Fatu. And Jacob Fatu, he comes out, and he wants to challenge Roman Reigns for Reigns' WWE World Heavyweight Championship at WWE Backlash on May 9th of 2026. And, I didn't really expect that one. I was wondering if, when I saw Jacob Fatu come out, I was wondering if, Fatu was going to try to join this newly reformed version of the Bloodline. No, but no. And Jacob Fatu said, he doesn't just, want that World Heavyweight Championship that Roman Reigns has. He says that he, quote-unquote, needs it to improve his family's life. And Roman Reigns says, well, you know what? I'm not going to say yes or no right now. Roman Reigns says, he's like, I'm going to let you have, a week to think about what you just asked me. Think about what you just said to me. And then I will see you next week on next week's edition of Raw. And we'll see if you still feel the same way. So we'll see if, if Jacob Fatu, what happens when Fatu shows up and confronts Roman Reigns next week on Raw here. And, well, that's pretty much the way the show ended. And, we had, of course, your announcers were Michael Cole and Corey Graves for the show. And that was pretty much it for the show, and I think that's where I'm going to call it quits for this particular video, so I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.